Y'all, I don't know about this LeBron James. Every time I look around, LeBron James, he's always in the news for something. What is going on with him? LeBron James, this or that or this or that. But people are saying Scottie Pippen was not wrong about him. I got some video footage you guys are going to check out. And it's telling a whole story that social media is not talking about. Nobody is not talking about this. So that's why I'm bringing it here so we can all digest it and have a talk. All right. Make sure you guys keep the likes, shares, and subscriptions up. I really appreciate you guys. Love you guys so much. So let's see what's really going on in these streets.
When I look at LeBron, he's not what Michael was as a player. He's not even what Kobe Bryant was as a player.
That what it took LeBron years to maturate to mentally and in your heart, Jordan came into the league with that. And that to me is what I have a problem with when people say something about LeBron.
You look at these players in today's era, being LeBron, there's really no comparison when you talk about the level of competitiveness. Michael bunched up all of his competitiveness within 12 to 14 years. LeBron has to spread that out for 20 plus years.
Scottie Pippen hasn't exactly been handing out compliments to Michael Jordan in recent years. For a long time now, he's been openly challenging the version of their relationship that many fans believed was real. During interviews, including a well-known appearance on Valuetainment, Pippen said he and Jordan were never truly friends. While promoting his book, he also criticized Jordan's leadership style, questioned parts of his legacy, and argued that The Last Dance focused too heavily on one side of the story. For years, fans viewed them as basketball's ultimate duo, but Pippen's comments painted a very different picture. They won 6 championships together and helped build one of the greatest dynasties in sports history. Yet according to Pippen, much of that partnership was business rather than brotherhood. That's why a 2018 appearance on ESPN's First Take caught so much attention. Many viewers expected him to praise LeBron James while taking another swipe at Jordan in the process. The setup seemed almost perfect for that kind of headline. The stage was there. The cameras were rolling. The audience was huge. Plenty of people thought Pippen was about to add another chapter to the Jordan versus LeBron debate and throw his support behind LeBron as the greatest ever. But that's not what happened. Instead, Pippen made comments that surprised a lot of basketball fans and sparked debate that still hasn't completely faded away. During the discussion, Pippen talked about what he believed separates certain legendary players from everyone else. He used the phrase clutch gene.
His ability to want to have that last shot.
And demoralize you.
And, yes.
And scare the living hell out of you.
LeBron doesn't have that gene.
And suggested that some athletes seem to have a natural ability to embrace the biggest moments. In his view, LeBron did not consistently show that trait in the same way certain other all-time greats did. Whether fans agreed or disagreed, the statement instantly became one of the most talked about moments from the interview. That reaction was especially strong because of who was saying it. This wasn't a random commentator looking for clicks. This was Scottie Pippen, a 6-time NBA champion, an 8-time All-NBA selection, a 10-time All-Defensive Team member, and one of the most versatile players the league has ever seen. He defended nearly every position on the floor and played a major role in some of basketball's biggest moments. Pippen's criticism also stood out because he had already spent years questioning Jordan's legacy. That's the context many fans brought into the interview. When Stephen A. Smith pressed him on the topic, some expected another critique aimed at Michael. Instead, Pippen shifted the focus and raised questions about LeBron's approach in high-pressure situations.
That what it took LeBron years to maturate to mentally and in your heart, Jordan came into the league with that. And that to me is what I have a problem with when people say something about LeBron.
According to Pippen, there was a difference between players who naturally hunted the biggest moments and players who approached them differently. He suggested that Jordan entered the league with an aggressive, competitive edge that was obvious from the start. In Pippen's opinion, that mindset wasn't something that could easily be taught. It was simply part of who certain players were. Pippen believed he was qualified to make that comparison because of everything he had seen throughout his career. He spent more than a decade alongside Jordan. competed against countless stars, and experienced pressure-packed playoff battles year after year. From his perspective, he understood the body language, confidence, and mentality that often appeared when games were hanging in the balance. He pointed to moments where he felt LeBron wasn't actively demanding the ball during critical stretches.
And I can sit here and say today that I watched LeBron the other night, and the game was on the line. And he made little or no effort to go after the ball.
For Pippen, those sequences raised questions about how aggressively LeBron sought out game-defining opportunities. Supporters of LeBron have often pushed back on that idea, arguing that making the right basketball play can sometimes mean trusting teammates. Still, Pippen's comments kept the conversation alive. That's why the interview continues to be discussed years later.
That's the only thing that I knock LeBron about, is not having that clutch gene.
Right.
But a lot of players don't have
Max,
that clutch gene. And a lot of players don't have that opportunity to even develop that clutch gene.
The debate wasn't just about statistics, championships, or highlights. It was about mindset, leadership, and how different people interpret greatness. Pippen delivered his opinion clearly on national television, and the quote quickly became part of the never-ending GOAT conversation. Years later, fans on both sides are still arguing about what he meant and whether he was right. Now pause for a second. If you want to understand what Scottie Pippen meant when he talked about the clutch gene, you have to think back to one of the most famous nights in NBA history. Forget the debates and the social media arguments for a moment. Go back to June 11th, 1997. Game 5 of the NBA Finals. The Chicago Bulls and Utah Jazz were tied 2-2 in the series, and everything was on the line in Salt Lake City. Michael Jordan wasn't close to full strength that night. He was visibly exhausted, drenched in sweat, and struggling just to move around the court. Reports at the time described him as seriously ill, and many people wondered whether he could even finish the game. Some thought it would have been completely understandable if he sat out or played limited minutes. Instead, he stayed on the floor and battled through it. Jordan ended up playing 38 minutes and scoring 38 points in one of the most talked about performances of his career. Meanwhile, the Bulls' defense locked in during the second half, making life difficult for Utah's stars. Then came the moment everyone remembers. In the closing seconds, with the pressure at its absolute peak, Jordan knocked down a huge three-pointer that helped put Chicago in position to secure the victory. When the game ended, he was completely drained. One of the most iconic images from that night showed Scottie Pippen helping support Jordan as they left the floor. It became a symbol of determination, resilience, and performing under enormous pressure. For Pippen, moments like that represent what he describes as the clutch gene. He's not talking about a box score, a highlight reel, or a stat sheet. He's talking about the mindset that pushes certain players to embrace the biggest moments, even when everything is working against them. In Pippen's view, it's a mentality that stands out when the stakes are highest. That's why his comments years later created such a strong reaction. Pippen wasn't speaking as someone watching from a distance. He shared the court with Jordan during championship runs, witnessed countless pressure-filled situations, and experienced those moments firsthand. Whether fans agree with his opinion or not, his perspective carries weight because of where he stood during those historic years, and the discussion didn't stop there. Years after that first take appearance, Pippen sat down with Patrick Bet-David on Valuetainment, and the conversation once again shifted toward the never-ending GOAT debate. This time, Pippen delivered another comment that quickly grabbed attention.
Because I didn't chase mine.
Okay, and that's an argument that LeBron went to Miami. He went back to Cleveland to win with Kyrie, and then he went back to LA to win with Anthony Davis. All are, Michael never had teammates like that, and you had Michael as a teammate.
I didn't chase mine, just 4 words, but they sparked a huge amount of discussion. Many fans interpreted the statement as a comparison between different championship journeys and different career paths. It wasn't loud or dramatic in delivery, but it landed hard because of who was saying it and the history behind those words. As the interview continued, Bet-David asked a direct question about team building and player selection. If you were starting a franchise, who would you choose?
You want individual accolades or you want championships? Because I didn't chase mine.
Pippen's response fueled even more debate across the basketball world. Supporters on both sides immediately jumped into the conversation, each convinced their argument had just been strengthened. That's what makes these comments so memorable. The discussion isn't only about points, awards, records, or championships. It's also about how people define greatness. Some focus on individual accomplishments. Others focus on leadership, winning, and the ability to deliver in pressure-packed moments. Pippen's remarks added another layer to that conversation, and years later, fans are still dissecting every word.
My success as a team is more successful than LeBron. I got 6 rings.
While social media continued to push new arguments and new rankings, Pippen remained one of the few people with a front row seat to an entire championship dynasty. That history is a big reason why his opinions continue to generate headlines and spark intense debate whenever the GOAT conversation comes up again. And this is where the debate takes another turn. According to Scottie Pippen's viewpoint, the biggest issue isn't any single player. It's the way many fans define greatness today. Over the years, the GOAT conversation has shifted more and more toward career totals, longevity, and cumulative achievements. For some fans, playing at a high level for 2 decades is the ultimate measuring stick. For others, the focus is on what happened during the biggest moments, when championships and legacies were hanging in the balance. Pippen's comments touched directly on that divide.
When you look at these players in today's era, being LeBron, there's really no comparison. When you talk about the level of competitiveness, Michael bunched up all of his competitiveness within 12 to 14 years. LeBron has to spread that out for 20 plus years. It's not the same drive. It's not the same fight. It's not the same hunger.
He wasn't simply comparing players. He was comparing philosophies. One side values longevity and sustained production over many years. The other values peak dominance, championship runs, and the ability to take over when the pressure is at its highest. That's where much of the disagreement begins. In Pippen's view, Michael Jordan approached every season with relentless intensity. Jordan's reputation was built around an all-out style of competition, where every game seemed to carry enormous importance. Many supporters of Jordan argue that his career was defined by maximum effort and an uncompromising drive to win whenever he stepped onto the court. Pippen suggested that LeBron's career has followed a different path. Rather than focusing on a shorter period of peak dominance, LeBron has been able to maintain elite production across an incredibly long career. His supporters see that as one of the greatest accomplishments in sports history. Critics, however, sometimes argue that longevity and peak intensity should be weighed differently when comparing all-time greats. That's where the debate gets heated. Then comes one of Pippen's most discussed points.
You know, LeBron had a Wade, LeBron had a Bosh, LeBron had a Kyrie, LeBron had a Anthony Davis, and Michael had you.
He often highlights the fact that he and Jordan won 6 championships together with the same core group leading the way. Because Pippen himself is considered one of the greatest players ever, his perspective naturally grabs attention whenever he compares championship journeys and team construction across different eras. For many fans, that comparison becomes part of a larger discussion about supporting casts, roster changes, and how stars pursued titles throughout their careers. Some view stability as a major factor. Others point out that different circumstances require different decisions. Either way, the conversation never seems to slow down. Another area where Pippen has pushed back strongly is the comparison between eras. For years, fans have argued about whether today's NBA is more skilled, faster, and more advanced than previous generations. Supporters of modern stars often point to improvements in training, analytics, shooting, and overall athleticism. Critics counter by emphasizing how physical the game used to be. Pippen has frequently spoken about that physicality. According to him, driving into the paint during the early 1990s was a completely different experience.
When we played, there were no lanes. Wasn't nothing but hardwood floor. If you go to the basket, you're going to hit the wall. There's no comparison.
Defenders were allowed to play a much more physical brand of basketball, and star players often absorbed heavy contact that would likely be penalized more severely under today's rules. Teams like the Detroit Pistons and New York Knicks became famous for their tough defensive style. Their game plans often revolved around making life as difficult as possible for opposing stars. Those battles helped define the era and remain a major part of why comparisons between generations are so complicated. Every era presents different challenges, and fans continue arguing over which environment was truly tougher. Michael Jordan played in one of the most physical eras the NBA has ever seen, and still walked away with 6 championships, 6 Finals MVP awards, and a perfect record in the NBA Finals. That's a huge part of why his supporters continue to defend his place in basketball history. For many fans, those accomplishments remain the gold standard when the GOAT debate comes up. Scottie Pippen has often pointed to the differences between generations when discussing today's game versus the era he played in.
Did you hear me say, earn it at the free throw line? That doesn't even exist in today's game. It's just about shooting the ball, shooting the ball.
He has argued that the league was far more physical during the 1980s and 1990s, with defenders allowed to make much more contact than they can under current rules. In Pippen's view, scoring points often meant absorbing punishment and fighting through tough defensive pressure on nearly every possession. According to Pippen, earning points and respect in that era required a different level of physical toughness. Players were expected to absorb hard contact, get back up, and keep competing without hesitation. That's one of the reasons he believes comparing players across generations can be so difficult. The conditions were different, the rules were different, and the style of play was different. And that's really where this entire discussion lands. For years, basketball fans have debated Michael Jordan versus LeBron James as if one new statistic or one new highlight will finally settle the argument. But what makes Pippen's comments so fascinating is that they came from someone who experienced championship basketball at the highest level and shared the court with Jordan during one of the sport's greatest dynasties. Across multiple interviews, Pippen repeatedly expressed the same core opinions. He questioned whether LeBron possessed the same late-game mentality he saw in Jordan. He highlighted differences in how each player won championships. He also pointed to the contrast between the physical nature of past eras and the modern NBA. Those comments became major talking points because they came from one of the people closest to the story. None of this changes the fact that LeBron James is widely recognized as one of the greatest players in basketball history. His achievements, longevity, records, and championships have secured his place among the all-time legends. At the same time, Pippen's perspective continues to fuel debate because of his unique experience and first-hand view of basketball's biggest stage. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you agree with Scottie Pippen's assessment, or do you think he's being too critical of LeBron's legacy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with other basketball fans so they can join the debate too. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps these discussions coming. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.